What's going on, guys? Welcome to the David F. Haas podcast. I'm your host, David F. Haas. I'm here with my good buddy, Mickey Pittman. We're on part 3 of what makes a good leader. And we've covered all kinds of stuff in the first 2 parts, and we actually did a prelude to our 3-part series as well. You can check that out. But we're coming into this time and this age where it's like the great resignation, we've called it, where people are finally coming to the realization they can do whatever it is they want. And the importance of becoming a great leader has never been more prominent than it is today, I feel. And, today's podcast is about why great leaders make more money. But this could really be, attributed to anything. It's like why great leaders are happier, why great leaders have better home lives, why they get more respect, it's not really about just money, but money happens to be a consequence if you are an amazing leader. And so that's what Mickey and I are gonna dig into, going back and forth on a few points today on why we think this is the case and why we also think that leadership is, probably the most important tool that you can have these days. Because if you are not motivating people, not just with money anymore, but also just by making sure that they're happy and satisfied and fulfilled and they really love what they're doing, you're going to be at the losing end of the stick kind of thing. So would you agree that that's kind of like where we're headed, Mickey?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a real thing that leadership is not only influence, but it's the kind of thing you need in order to be successful today, because there's sort of a democratization of technology, right? Everyone has access to a smartphone of choice, technology, computers, whatever. And those things always do give people advantages until everyone has them. And at that point, there's parity, and you're back to the human dimension. So I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, 100%. My first point that I was going to make is with respect to why leaders make more money is because people are leveraged, right? And so the better leader you are, essentially, the longer your stick is when it comes to how heavy of things you can lift. You can have 100 people under you and really be underutilizing them, or you can have 100 people under you and you can really be making them as efficient as possible. And not only that is that they enjoy it; they want to be a part of that efficiency. And I've been in the restaurant business for a long time, and I'm in the process of a sale right now, and I've been coming back in and managing and running in the last few weeks here to start getting the new owners trained. And the one thing I recognize is that, I have been at a subconscious level, been able to really use my people with leverage and empower them as well. Like, it's not like I'm using them and taking advantage of them. They're being rewarded and they're happy to do so. They want to take on that extra responsibility. And because of that, I'm using a really long lever. And I've recognized that, because of the systems I put in place and the relationships that I've built and the culture even that I've built with respect to leadership and people wanting to step up within the organization, I can now manage that place, in administratively in about like 4 hours a week, and it's like that's the power of leverage, and this is why leaders make more money, because now if I'm only spending 4 hours a week in a company that's doing $1 million a year, that means I can maybe spend 4 hours a week in another company and make another $1 million a year, talking sales, obviously. But so I think that learning how to use that leverage, use the oldest leverage of time is people, and the old way of like just making sure people are getting paid, it's just no longer going to work. You have to go above and beyond just the pay. And maybe Mickey, you can inject there some of the things that you think that people need to do to like take that step and really utilize their people to the fullest potential.
Yeah, well, you bring up an excellent point, especially when it comes to restaurants. Our experience has been in restaurants that it's typical across corporate America that there's just a lot of disengaged people in the workplace specifically. And I'm not talking about like when they're at home on their phone or playing a game. We're talking about at the workplace. And, from my military background, one of my mentors and business partners, longtime special operations leader, says, that one of the key leadership principles in life is all guns in the fight. And if you go back and look at even World War II, right? So you have Canada, you have the UK, you have United States of America. We're all landing on the beaches in Normandy, right? the truth is, if men don't fight, they're going to die. Even in those death-like circumstances, right? I mean, D-Day, go watch a movie. It's kind of crazy. Only 30 to 40% of the soldiers were engaged at any one time in a firefight. And so when we did that research, we were astounded, because you would think I could die if I don't get engaged. So maybe I should be fighting. The truth is, not more than half. And so, that's why in the Ranger community or the special operations community, we have the saying, all guns to the fight, because the truth is, same thing in corporate America. If you hire 10 people, upwards of 6 of those people aren't fully engaged in their work, which means you're paying them money for them to not work for you. And it's sometimes it's because of the job they're in. Sometimes it's because of their temperament or attitude. Maybe you hired the wrong person. Sometimes it's just because there's something going on in their life and they're distracted, right? I mean, how many times in restaurants today, you wonder, like, man, I would love a second drink or another glass of water. And you look over in the corner, and the hostess or waitress she's in her phone texting someone. You're thinking, I'm not tipping her to text someone else, right? I need another drink. And so what's the deal? And it comes down to engagement. And so leaders, two things. Leadership is influence. I think that's really important. And I think that character ultimately determines. And so, I do think that leadership results in leverage. I think that's a great way to think about it. Really, though, it ends up being leverage. What I would call external leverage. And so if you think about it, it's who you are as a person that's allowed you to build relationships so that when you're not there, people are still going to do the right thing. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a carrot and a stick. I mean, managers, I think, probably deal more with carrot and stick type stuff, but leadership is more about building influence and relationships. And when you have influence in relationships, there's this funny word called trust. And when trust comes into the picture, you're right. There's no limit to the things that you can do as a business owner, leader. You don't even have to be on the premise, right? You don't even have to be really engaged. You can be on vacation and know that things are still going to get done because of the relationships and trust you built. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. And, I recognize now, after meeting you and, like learning more leadership tactics for you, that I was, unconsciously a good leader in the respect that I cared about my employees. I cared about my customers. And I was never out to screw anybody, like I wasn't trying to, a long time ago, I let go of hiring someone and making sure that they were working for me every single minute, and like trying to squeeze every last cent out of them. It's like there was no downtime. I just started being like, hey, this is the job. This is what I want you to do. And if you can get that job done in an hour, and you're here for 8 hours, then that's great. That's like, or you're on salary and you get this job done, then you go ahead and do that. But as long as you're producing the results for me, and people understood that, and because of that, there was this mutual trust that was built between us, because I was giving them that power to say, hey, listen, as long as it's done right and in a timely manner, I'm not worried about how many hours you're getting paid for, as opposed to the tasks that I've kind of put them on. So and then just being a person of integrity, and a man of faith, I guess I could put in there as well, that I'm not going to trying to cheat you out of a little bit of pay. I'm not going to cheat customers. I'm going to make sure that you're rewarded for work well done. And because of that, yes, people naturally will follow you. Right. And I guess I wasn't really realizing that I was kind of doing it. But that has been my I guess part of the reason for my success is because of those simple qualities that get overlooked in this world, that I implemented into my business. Where I think I struggled was when I was on the floor and I was engaging with every single employee. That was there. They knew that they could trust me. They knew that they wanted to follow me. They got behind my vision, and they would just go. Where I started to struggle was when I was trying to articulate that through a manager. And then that's where things kind of got a little bit more lost from me, is that I just found I wasn't creating, I couldn't, and this is something I recognized a long time ago, actually, Mickey, and I'd like you to talk on this, is like, you can't make your dream somebody else's dream, you know?
Right.
And like, or maybe you can, and maybe I just haven't figured it out, but like, I have all kinds of business ideas. Like they're like opportunities to me are like a dime a dozen. And, you know, like I live in a world of abundance, you know, so like I can make money doing anything is the way I feel. Right. And so over time, like I've had friends that are struggling and stuff. I'm like, let's create a business together. Like you can run it and I'll lead you, you know? So, but it was always my idea that I was trying to get them to get behind. And for some reason, it just never worked. You know, it was like I had this like T-shirt company idea that I thought was so great. It was called Effect Apparel, and we're gonna write like positive words like gratitude on T-shirts, and we're gonna write it forwards and reverse. You know, so if someone's listening to the podcast, you can steal my idea because I'm not gonna do anything with it. Right? So when you looked in the mirror, you would see it the proper way. All right. I'm like, this is so cool. We're going to spread positivity throughout the world. And I gave it to my buddy and I said, man, this is yours. Like, take it, like build it. Like I'll support you. Like I'm your VC, you know, I'm your angel investor. Like, here's an opportunity to go. And I just couldn't get him to do it. Right. And so it's just like, that's that gap. I think that I think a lot of probably small business owners struggle with is when they're there, they're probably naturally a good leader because they have vision and energy and people are motivated by that. But when they take that step back and they have to replace themselves with someone that maybe is only operating at 8% of what they were, they have trouble leading through that person. Does that make sense?
Right. And so, you know, you hit on a couple of things really interesting, and we sometimes take for granted in the Western culture. One is, you mentioned earlier that idea that you want to treat people how they want to be treated. And
Yeah.
that's a new idea in the world, right? I think it was Jesus who came up with that idea of doing unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That hasn't always been the case in the world, nor has it always been the case in business. I mean, if you look back, even with the Industrial Revolution, I mean, it wasn't like people were like caring about others' feelings, right? There was some. It was closer.
That was the rise of the unions, right?
Right.
Yeah, like someone had to call them out on the shit they were doing, and now it's kind of gone the other way, but it's kind of coming full circle now, right?
Yes, that's right. And the other thing is that there's this idea of being equally yoked, right? And so leadership, part of leadership, and which allows it, you know, to be more successful long term, is you're making an honest evaluation about the situation, and knowing, you know, and measuring people, you know, according to a standard, right? And so one of the things leaders do is they set high standards. And what I found is when I start a business with someone or jump into that, you know, is to have clear agreements. And so I love the fact that you're trying to help people start businesses. I think that's smart. I do the same thing. I've got a young man. He's 25. I mentored him in high school and college for a while. Now he's an engineer. He just got finished working for SpaceX. Right now he's kind of venturing out to his own. So yeah, I mean, I'm helping him kind of launch a business. And so here's the thing I do. As a leader, though, I don't try to do everything for him. Right. I give him tasks, and I measure up front, you know, if he's willing to do his part of the job, right? If he's willing to pull. And so I think a lot of people, you know, when they first get a job, that, you know, the paycheck's great, but eventually they take the paycheck for granted. And I think that's when leadership needs to come in, right? It's the depth of relationship that you have. We say the same thing in the military, you know, that it's not, you're not dying for your country. You're not dying for the flag. You're not dying for a mom and apple pie. You know, you're fighting for the warriors to your left and to your right. And so if you haven't done the kinds of things in your organization, this is part of leadership, to build unit integrity or deep cohesion relationship, then eventually people are going to say, hey, why should I do this? Sure, I you know, I could mop the floor like I'm supposed to, but the truth is my girlfriend's waiting on me, and you know, the guys that run this restaurant, they really don't care about me anyhow. And she does care about me. I'm out of here. You know what I mean? And I'll sweep over it and I'll check the blocks that was mopped, but who's really going to know, right? And then someone comes in for breakfast, has a fall, you're dealing with a lawsuit, you know, and because you had an opportunity as a leader, well, one, you hired the person, right? So you didn't evaluate them well. Two, you didn't develop them well. And three, you know, you trust but verify. And so leadership is the difference in organizations. the USA Today did a poll a few years ago, and they just did a measure. I thought it was pretty neat what they did. They looked at CEOs who had a civilian background versus CEOs who had a military background, and everything else the same. The guys who had been military leaders before made on average 5% more returns to their company each year versus their competitors. And so I dug into that a little bit, because a lot of people on the podcast were like, well, I never served in the military, so how's that going to help me? Well, this is the deal. It wasn't that they'd worn a uniform for 30 years that helped them run their company, and it wasn't that they had been in combat that helped them run their company. I mean, sure, that might help you deal with stress, but the military does plenty of other things to help people deal with stress. It's the leadership, right? Because the military focuses heavily on the developing the people, and so it's a big deal. I mean, Bill Gates said early on, how he was able to beat Hewlett Packard, when they were a multi-million or already billion-dollar organization. He was still in, maybe his parents' garage or something like that. He said, hey, we were willing to make mistakes faster. And that points to being an effective leader. People make a mistake. You don't fire them. If it's an honest mistake, you kind of dust them off and get them back in the game. And when you demonstrate kind of faith in people and build relationships and trust, then over time, you're going to find out that you're going to be sharper than other organizations that don't have that same level of relationship.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And yeah, I mean, you said a lot of great things there, and I think people are starting to understand this importance, and it's being highlighted more and more. Just because it's harder to get people, and especially now in this day and age here too, is it's like, I mean, unemployment is lower than it's ever been. You got help wanted signs all over the place, and it's like, I think the one thing that you said that really resonated with me was like, people eventually get complacent with their salary, so you can attract all you want with a big high salary, but at some point, and this goes to the point of like some spiritual growth work that I teach is that desire is insatiable, meaning it cannot be satisfied. So while they may be seeking, let's say, for example, $100,000 salary, they get that $100,000 salary, and then all of a sudden, it's not enough, and they want more, right? And so, while you may not be giving them more money, one of the things that you could do is help them transcend that desire and give them a larger purpose, than just making more money, and getting them aligned with what it is that you want to do. And when you do that, you go from this place of force to a place of flow, and it is really about is about giving to others. And that was my second point. And I know we have limited time, so we'll wrap this up here in the next 5 minutes. But my second point, and I think it's probably critical, this is again is like something that's been in the field for 2,000 years. And, a lot of people just forget that it exists, but it's like, it is in giving that you receive. And in business, especially amongst entrepreneurs and corporations in general, we get obsessed with getting. Like, how can I get more sales? How can I get that really good employee? How can I, get lower costs? How can I get better deals? And when you are fully obsessed with getting, you miss what is the most important, which is giving. And so, ultimately, what makes a good leader is being willing to give to the people that you are leading. And when they see that you're willing to go above and beyond for them and give to them, naturally they're going to line up behind you and follow you. And I think one of your lines is like, you want to create a culture where people are looking to you so much that even if you stop paying them, they would still be there with you.
Yeah, it's really interesting when leaders seek and take responsibility, right? It's just so refreshing in this world. And there's a very interesting show. I think it's on HBO right now. It's called Succession. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't watched it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous, and it's just like a kind of a dark comedy thing about the business world. And it's a bunch of selfish people, all of them trying to get what's best for them, and the whole thing just goes around in circles. And you're like, here's the truth. When you only have selfish people as leaders, that's exactly right. And I tell people all the time, okay, sure, you might be selfish in the context of you're not running a business to make nothing, right? You want to make money. Okay, that can be If you want to call that selfish, then let's leave it there. But you're not going to do that by only making selfish decisions. And I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And what happens is when you build a culture where people are appreciated, it's Colonel John Boyd that made the comment late in his career. He's a guy that founded something called an OODA loop. And it's the speed at which you observe the environment, orient on the most important thing, make a decision on that fact, and then execute or take action. That's the OODA, OODA loop. He said that leadership is appreciation. And and at some point, right, if a guy's waking up and he's got a terrible relationship with his family, he's just broken up with his girlfriend, but his boss consistently pours into his life, encourages him, gives him opportunity, rewards him, and he sees that, wow, that's, the one place in my life right now that's going pretty good, that's at work. Do you ever hear anybody saying that? Just do yourself a favor if you're listening to this podcast, and you can get back into stores these days. Just, walk into a few stores, just interview some people that are working retail and find out, if their bosses really care for them or not. Right.
Yeah.
And if they really feel appreciated.
Yeah.
Because the things that people do when they feel appreciated, it's any obstacle that was insurmountable is not anymore, because people will pull,
Yeah. And it's actually interesting too. It's like, because, I always said, like, you can pretty much go into any competition and get all the information that you need by talking to a disgruntled employee.
Right.
And so, I mean, that's another reason why leaders make more money too, is because your employees recognize that anyone questioning what it is that you're doing and why you're so successful might be someone looking to try and steal that from you. And if they're attached to the growth and the company, that they're not going to give that information away willingly, right? So that's another reason why leaders make more money. But we got to wrap it up there, Mickey. But I think we drove home a few great points, and you and I are on the precipice of like really starting something great here, because we can see, like, even when we just have these discussions, I'm like, man, the world is missing this, and what you and I are creating, we haven't 100% coined it, but we're calling it the letting go leader, which is, if you want to create great employees, you need to become great within yourself. So we help. What we're trying to do is help people rise up the scale of consciousness, improve their own life, but then also by removing these barriers and blocks that are preventing our own greatness, we're also doing that for the people that we're leading. And the old saying goes that the tide raises all boats, and that's what it is that we're putting together here. And I'm really excited to get this thing off the ground, because you can see that we're in a place where the world needs more of this. So thanks for taking the time to come on, and I look forward to doing more stuff with you.